everyone, and welcome to the Kimberly Guilfoyle Show, live on Rumble, where facts come first and where news is done right. And we have so much big breaking news to cover today as we expose the corruption and chaos in every corner of the Democratic Party. Just ahead, the one and only Roger Stone will be here to expose George Stephanopoulos and Liz Cheney. We'll explain. And later, we'll bring you the true stories of escaping the left-wing gender identity cult with author and reporter Mary Margaret Olohan. And plus, Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville is here on why Democrats are still making excuses for illegal alien criminals. That's coming up. But first, we begin with a look at the corrupt, bad actors in the media and how they are going into overdrive to protect Joe Biden. For example, just yesterday on ABC, host George Stephanopoulos tried to shame South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace for endorsing Donald Trump and for not offering words of support to E. Jean Carroll. Look at this sickening line of questioning. Watch.
A rape victim who's been shamed for years now because of her rape. You're trying to shame me again by asking me this political question.
You've repeated that again.
I think it's offensive. As a woman, I find it offensive. For my political choices, I've endorsed the man that I believe is best for our country. It's not Joe Biden. And you looked at the dueling rallies yesterday in Georgia. Laken Riley's family was with Donald Trump. They weren't with Joe Biden. The same guy yesterday that apologized for calling her killer an illegal, who wasn't illegal. And here you are trying to shame a rape victim. I find it disgusting.
Now, as Roger Stone will explain in just moments, it was George Stephanopoulos who ran interference for Bill Clinton and amid serious rape accusations and amid confirmed instances of sexual abuse. And yet, he has the audacity to try to lecture a sitting congresswoman about E. Jean Carroll, who called rape sexy, among other bizarre behavior. But of course, false narratives and fake news is just business as usual for Democrats and their media allies. Because unhinged Trump hater Liz Cheney is caught in yet another massive lie surrounding January 6th and efforts to undermine President Trump. As we are now learning that the sham, and I mean sham, January 6th committee suppressed evidence that President Donald Trump pushed for 10,000 National Guard troops to protect the nation's capital, according to a previously hidden transcript. According to the report, Cheney and her corrupt minions falsely claimed they had no evidence to support Trump officials' claims about a request for 10,000 National Guard troops. But in fact, an early transcribed interview conducted by the committee included precisely that evidence from a key source, but it was hidden from public view. Former White House Deputy Chief of Staff Anthony Arnado told Cheney that he heard then Chief of Staff Mark Meadows push Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser to request as many National Guard troops as she needed to protect the city. Translation: Liz Cheney is caught in yet another lie and hid exonerating, exculpatory evidence to try and protect her false narrative. Here to react to all of this, author of The Clintons' War on Women, iconic political strategist, and host of the Stone Zone, Roger Stone. Roger, thank you so much for being on the program.
It is great to be with you again, Kimberly. First of all, let me apologize for having to miss your great birthday party on Saturday. I had agreed to speak to the Collier County Republican Lincoln Reagan dinner and give the Trump Award. And it was a long-standing commitment, but I really wish I had been with you, and happy birthday.
Thank you, sweetheart. I really appreciate it. I got to tell you, you were definitely missed. You know, I was texting you going, oh man, people were asking for you too. You're always a big hit at the parties. People like you a lot. They find you interesting and fascinating to talk to. You're always the best dressed guy there. So, you know, you're an immediate party request, and you're also one of my closest friends. So I'm glad you did that and everything for the president. But yes, we definitely missed you.
Next year.
So let's talk about this George Stephanopoulos. What a complete hypocrite, okay? His questions to Congresswoman Mace, who I saw last week in D.C., can you ever imagine him interviewing a Democrat like that?
I mean, this is really outrageous, but if you think about it, I think you have to recognize George Stephanopoulos, despite the fact that he has a big show on ABC, He's not a journalist. During the 2016 campaign, of course, he was caught making a huge contribution to the Clinton Global Initiative. Journalists don't give contributions on a partisan basis. Secondarily, as I outlined in my book, The Clintons' War on Women, he was directly involved in the efforts to silence multiple women who Bill Clinton sexually assaulted. Now, for those who want to say, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory, actually, Bill Clinton paid Paula Jones $800,000 in order to settle her claims of sexual assault. Juanita Broaddrick has written a terrific book in which she documents her rape and assault at the hands of Bill Clinton. So has Kathy Willey. I enumerated 38 women that Bill Clinton either raped or bit or assaulted in my book. So Stephanopoulos has some nerve, having been the cleanup man for the worst rapist who's ever been president, that would be Bill Clinton, based on a false assertion. In fact, even in the biased New York trial caused by E. Jean Carroll, there was no finding that President Donald Trump raped Ms. Carroll. He was, in the end, I think, wrongly convicted of sexual assault. So this is just a Democrat dirty trick. And it is particularly offensive in view of the fact that Congresswoman Mace is herself a rape victim. I'm just calling this out for what it is. Partisan election interference by a non-journalist, George Stephanopoulos, who in this case turns out to be an enormous hypocrite. Just an enormous hypocrite.
It's outrageous, actually, when you think about it. Imagine if it was, the other way around. There'd be outrage all over the place. And let's not forget, as you've mentioned, he's a long time Clinton operative. Okay, so that's about, as slimy as you can be. It's like a PhD in slime. Okay, so as you've uncovered, he ran all this interference, like you talked about, amid, serious accusations and confirmed instances. Yet he has the gall, the audacity to sit there and be pious and act like he's, holier than thou. You were right there in the arena when all of this was going on, the cover-ups and the, just the defamation of serious victims, everything that he was doing to try to, help his team, help the Clintons. It's just, I don't want people to forget about history here.
Well, actually, there's a great interview, you can find it, in which Stephanopoulos asks candidate Trump if there's ever anything he did in his entire life that he regretted. And he thought for a moment, he said, sure, everybody's done something that they regret. Like you, George, don't you regret giving a huge contribution to the Clinton Foundation when you're supposed to be an unbiased journalist? It was one of the greatest pieces of live television I've ever seen. Look, the important thing here to understand is that Bill Clinton was a sexual assaulter and raper of women. He had a standard MO. He would actually bite through the upper lip of his victims. More than one of the women who he assaulted told me this in interviews for my book, The Clintons' War on Women. It's also detailed in Juanita Broaddrick's great book. That way he would immobilize them. This guy is a freak. There's no question about it. But who was it employing the heavy-handed private detectives and the nasty lawyers to try to silence Bill Clinton's victims? That would be Hillary. And who was Hillary's henchman? Why, that would be George Stephanopoulos. So, George, don't pretend like you're some unbiased journalist. You're a Democratic operative who was lucky enough to get a network show.
No kidding.
No Bill Clinton, no George Stephanopoulos.
And quite frankly, he was rude to Nancy Mace. Like, I was appalled by the whole thing.
The whole tone is nasty, but look, you see this constantly. I mean, just the other day, Andrea Mitchell, another dinosaur, on MSNBC, takes NBC's own poll, which shows President Trump leading nationally and in every swing states, and she basically says, that's wrong. Biden is much, much stronger and far more popular than the poll shows. This is delusional. I mean, this is, and she's not credible as a blonde either, but that's a whole separate subject. I mean, the level at this juncture of hatred among the jackals in the fake news media It's hard to stomach. A piece I saw yesterday, day before yesterday, in the Atlantic, in which some fellow named Berman says, well, if Trump wins the election, then the Democrats have to consider the option of just refusing to certify that election, that victory in the Electoral College. Isn't that what they're currently accusing Trump of doing, saying in his case it was a crime? But here he's actually saying if Trump wins, we should refuse to certify his victory. The hypocrisy here is knee deep.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's insane. It's what they accuse, our side of, and yet look what they're doing. They're like openly, actively saying it, the quiet part out loud. So, of course, the media is enabling all of this, right? The lawfare against President Trump. But they made endless excuses for the Clintons and other prominent Democrats like the Obamas over the years. What does that tell you? Because I think they're getting even more dug in on a terrible candidate, President Biden running again now. But it's fascinating to me.
Well, my theory, in all honesty, Kimberly, is that State of the Union address, which they should call Hate of the Union address, was Joe, probably propped up by his wife, seeking to show his handlers and the Obamas that he is indeed up to the task of running for re-election. Don't dump me. I'm smart. I'm smart. And I think he made a fool of himself. You could actually see the clock running down. In other words, he started out strong, but as he went along, he got more and more confused. Even working with a teleprompter, he kept muffing his lines. When he sought to improvise, he misstated Laken Riley's name. He called her Lincoln Riley. But then he blurted out the sad truth, which is thousands of people have been killed by illegal immigrants in this country under his leadership. And then, of course, he pulls out the trope that he always pulls out. As someone who's lost his own son, many times he insists his son died in military service in Iraq, which, of course, we all know is untrue. No disrespect to his late son, but his son died of a brain tumor, not in the service of his country. But Biden pulls that one out again and again. It's interesting that in the special counsel's report, the special counsel investigating his illegal but willful retention of top secret and classified documents, he was outraged, he said, because the special counsel asked him about his son's death, the date of which he couldn't remember. But then we learned afterwards that it wasn't the special counsel who raised it at all. It was Joe himself. He always uses it politically. So I don't know how much longer he can hang on. My guess is that he and Dr. Jill, they don't want to go. And of course, Hunter and Jimmy and the other members of the Biden crime family, they want to make sure that Joe retains the power to pardon them and himself and them. So they don't want him to go. I stand by my prediction, though, as we get closer to the convention, the pressure on him from the Obamas and others, as he looks more and more like a loser, is going to be insurmountable. And ultimately, although I predicted that they replace him with Michelle Obama, I could be wrong about that, but I do think they replace him nonetheless.
I really actually hope you're wrong. But what scares me is that
I do too. I'd love to see a Trump-Biden rematch. Can you imagine what this debate will be like? In fact, I'll predict you right now, Joe Biden doesn't have the cojones to show up for a debate with Donald Trump.
Right.
I can't see him ever agreeing to that for all the obvious reasons. But
yeah, how could he? It's like sayonara, put a toe tag on him.
Well, look, incumbency is very strong, and obviously the people directly around him are seeking to prop him up. I want to see a Trump-Biden rematch, only this time I'd like it to be an honest, fair, completely transparent election.
Well, you're absolutely right. And let's talk about this other lunatic, okay? Unhinged Trump hater, Liz Cheney. So she appears to have hidden, which is a very serious charge indeed, exonerating, exculpatory information and evidence that, in the stupid sham January 6th committee, and yet she's the most sanctimonious and claims she was protecting democracy. This new report is quite damning. I mean, Trump said, do whatever it takes, get as many as possible that you need, put in that request, but they all lied about it and hid it from the public view.
Yeah, as I think our mutual friend Kash Patel, who was then serving as the acting chief of staff for the Secretary of Defense, has the receipts. I mean, it is there in writing. It is absolutely clear that President Trump offered the mayor of D.C. And Speaker Pelosi the backup of the National Guard. I believe it was 10,000. And that's not a conspiracy theory or a claim. Kash Patel has the documentation, it's the actual letters. Obviously, as many of the facts regarding January 6th were hidden by that totally fake, one-sided, made for television, quote unquote, investigation. They know this and they continue to lie about it. And then on top of it, Liz Cheney says on social media, well, Kash Patel is not credible. Actually, anyone who knows Kash Patel, who's had a long record of service to this country, knows that he's entirely credible. He's been making this case for some time. So it is absolutely clear that Donald Trump did offer the assistance of National Guard troops to guard the Capitol, and they were willfully ignored by the mayor of D.C. and also by the speaker. This is not surprising to me. You also had Liz Cheney coaxing this witness who claimed before the committee, Cassidy Hutchinson, that Mark Meadows President Trump directed Mark Meadows to call me and General Flynn on January 5th to, quote unquote, these are Liz Cheney's words, find out what was going to happen on January 6th. I can tell you indisputably there was never any such phone call. Never talked to Mark Meadows or communicated to him directly or indirectly in my entire life. I think I met him once back when you were at Fox in a green room before he was working for the president. But it is a perfect example of the kind of perjury that they suborned. She goes on to say, by the way, Cheney and Cassidy Hutchinson, that Hutchison talked Meadows out of going to some meeting at the Willard Hotel in a war room, at which Flynn and I were allegedly present, but that Meadows called us the following day or called us later for a briefing. That's lie number two. If there's a war room in the Willard, I don't know about it. I was never in any such war room. By the way, 3 different sources have confirmed that for the Washington Post, not exactly a pro-Trump news outlet. It's just a made-up lie to use your name as clickbait.
That's
part
what
of
they do.
Broader January 6th fraud that was done by the committee. Why didn't the speaker appoint the Republicans who were designated by the Republican leader? Why did the speaker insist on appointing anti-Republicans like Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, as opposed to Jim Jordan and Jim Banks and others?
Yeah, I mean, these people, they're so not even just, a Judas the betrayer. I mean, they are really lacking in any principle or courage, any true conservatism. I mean, I had to go and deal with that stupid January 6th committee too. 13 hours. It was absolutely ridiculous of testimony. But now, given all of this, what are our Stone's rules that we should have at the top of our minds as we move closer to November? We see the momentum for President Trump. Did incredibly well, Super Tuesday, the rallies, all of the above. And we see kind of the state of the union, pun intended, and President Biden is in very bad shape. I mean, that was an abysmal failure.
Well, I guess for those who are disheartened, I guess my most important rule right now is never give up. I'm very excited about the new leadership at the Republican National Committee. I was not so excited about their previous leadership.
Right.
But I think the new chairman, particularly excited about Lara Trump.
Yeah, this was a long time coming. We needed to get rid of Ronna.
Amen. Now, my preferred candidate was Kimberly Guilfoyle, but I respect
too many
the president.
jobs. But I'm going to help my sister-in-law.
The president's made 2 excellent choices here. And I have read that Chris LaCivita, who, in my opinion, is one of the most able Republican strategists, operatives campaign operatives in the country, an enormously able and capable individual, is going to be overseeing the Republican National Committee. Lara Trump is a great addition. I think she brings credibility back to the committee that the committee had lost. And now, finally, the RNC, which by law can perform certain key functions in coordination with the presidential candidate, functions that only the national party can perform, is going to be stripped down and turned into the lean, mean, hopefully well-funded fighting machine it needs to be to help the president get to victories.
Wholeheartedly. And the down ballot races. We need those congressional and senatorial seats as well.
There's no question. I'm very optimistic, despite the fact that the lamestream media continues to snipe. Look, in the Bible, in every single great battle, the forces of the Lord are always overwhelmingly outnumbered, but they're also always victorious. I saw President Trump very briefly on Sunday. I've got to tell you, the guy's mood is amazing. Considering how hard he worked. I mean, the guy did a rally, a great rally in Georgia, where I really think he was totally on his game. And I told him this, one of the best performances ever on the stump. And then he flies to Miami, and in a surprise, he drops into the UFC fight, and the crowd in Miami goes out of their minds. It was
bananas,
pandemonium. So the president's energy level, his optimism, his resolve, his mood, most of all, his confidence, well, it's an inspiration to everybody who works for him and everybody who supports him.
Oh, my God. And it was just really exciting, electric to see how the crowd reacted. And there's his great friend of so many years, Dana White, following him. I never get tired of seeing Donald Trump go to a UFC match and go in there and talk to everyone and see everybody. It's so cool. And the crowd just absolutely loves him. All right, so lastly, let me talk about this. Do you think Joe Biden shows up for any debates? You mentioned it earlier. I don't see how he can do this. How are they going to run out the clock, though? What are they going to do to avoid debating?
Well, he, of course, is going to want to, because I think he is delusional. If you look at that very angry press conference he had a couple of days ago, where he says, I'm the best qualified person in the country to be president.
Wow.
Who could do what I've done? Who could do what I've done? Indeed. Who could ruin one of the greatest economies we've ever had? Who could fling open our border to bring in tens of millions of illegals, cause a fentanyl crisis, a crime crisis, a financial crisis? Who could ship $280 billion to Ukraine only to see the Russians, I think, kicking the daylights out of them, based on all the military experts that I respect, who indeed could drive the country to its knees the way Joe. But Joe thinks he's a Kennedy. Joe thinks he's very sharp. Joe thinks he's good on his feet. He's going to want to debate. His handlers
I think so. I think he's delusional. It's delusions of grandeur. I mean, I don't even know. But you know who else? Oh my God, I cannot even take it. You saw that whole thing with Joe Scarborough, where he's like, this is the best Joe Biden we've ever had. It was like, what is wrong with you? Are they paying you off? How can you say that with a straight face?
My mother used to say that he was a pompous Irish blowhard. I think that pretty much sums it up. He's been wrong on every major foreign policy issue throughout his career. But he actually thinks he's a Kennedy, thinks there's something special about him. So my guess is that he wants to debate. His handlers are more realistic. They know that between this tendency to just trail off in the middle of a sentence, forget what he was talking about, which multiple doctors tell me is one sure sign of the onset of senile dementia, combined with that volcanic temper that if you question him in any way, whether you're a voter, whether you're a reporter, doesn't matter who you are, if you question him, he just blows up. No, I don't think this guy can go into a debate. I'd be shocked. Look, I'd be shocked if he's the nominee. And I've said that forthrightly.
I know, but you say Michelle Obama, you're freaking me out. But how do they get over, Kamala Harris? I guess only with another black female.
They would really have a problem if Joe decided that he couldn't run, or more precisely, if he was pressured out of running. By all traditions, the sitting vice president would be next in line. But Democrats know that she's even a worse candidate than Joe. So they would have to, I don't know, promise her a Supreme Court seat to step aside in
Would
the
she
event
even
that they
take
elect
that
a president.
though? You know how like wildly ambitious she is.
Well, look, she certainly, if she ever got the presidency, I think it would be hard to get her to stand down. On the other hand, President Trump would beat her just as much as he would beat Joe Biden. It may actually be a little easier. So,
Her
look, I'm not a
approval ratings are
Democrat.
lower.
I'm not a Democrat, and I can't handicap the Democrats as well as I can the Republicans. But I would. He's still my preferred opponent. I want to see as many Trump Biden debates as humanly possible.
I agree. I wish they'd do one tomorrow. Let's see what happens though. Man, you're freaking me out with the Michelle Obama stuff. Ay, ay, ay. All right, we'll see what happens. But unfortunately for us folks, this guy right here is 99.9% batting average and right about stuff. So let's see what happens. Try to sleep well tonight with that thought. It's like a nightmare on Elm Street. Iconic political strategist, my great friend, the one and only Roger Stone. Catch him at 5 o'clock on the Stone Zone.
Thank you, Kimberly. God bless you.
God bless you, my friend. And don't go anywhere because we have much more to come with Daily Signal reporter Mary Margaret Olahan and Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville. So please download that Rumble app, subscribe to my channel, turn on the notifications, like, share, and subscribe so you never miss these major episodes because it's all of you who make this show possible along with our incredible sponsors. So be sure to go check out the good folks over at the Wellness Company, a leader in emergency medical kits. Look, we've seen the COVID chaos, the failure of so-called experts, and the need to protect you and your family. That's why I want to tell you about the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit, which are available all across the USA. So whether it's supply chain shortages, natural disasters, medical emergencies, or even war, you can have peace of mind knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help you and your family stay safe. The kit contains medications like amoxicillin, ivermectin, and Z-Pak, and you'll get a guidebook with complete instructions on safe use. So if you're like me and you want to be prepared for the unexpected, go to twc.health/kg to save 10% at checkout. That's twc.health/kg. And now, turning to more disturbing developments in the crisis in medicine and how far-left gender ideology is now making its way into our hospitals, into our schools, and across our government. For example, a recent report lays out how the World Professional Association for Transgender Health Doctors pushed ahead with experimental medical procedures despite alarming awareness of tumors developing from hormones, reduced sexual function, lack of proper informed consent for minors, and much more. And patients are speaking out, telling their stories of being victimized by the far-left gender ideology madness. The stories are documented in a new book called D-Trans, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult. Joining us now is the author of that book, Daily Signal reporter Mary Margaret Olahan. Mary Margaret, thank you so much for being back on the program. Your new book is a big smashing hit. It chronicles a lot of stories of detransitioners. Why did you decide to write this book, and what did you find?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Kimberly. I first decided to write this book because as a reporter covering gender ideology and the culture wars, I kept stumbling on these stories of young women, especially, and young men who had been tricked into trying to transition to another gender and then realized, of course, that this is impossible. And I kept seeing these stories and hearing these horrible mental and physical suffering that they had endured at the hands of these doctors and therapists. And I started thinking, there's so many of these that seems like people should be paying attention. But until recently, nobody was.
Terrible.
And so this book is an effort to show people, maybe you are a Democrat, maybe you're a Republican, maybe your political leanings are leftist. But if you hear these stories and you listen to what these young people have to say about what happened to them at the hands of these doctors, there's no way you can come away from it and think, okay, this should be allowed. And so my goal with this book was to share these stories in a kind of reported manner to allow people to read them and to understand for themselves the realities of what is going on here.
Yeah. So, what are some of the medical ethics or the governing rules surrounding the procedures in the United States? Are there any safeguards? Because that is a big thing to try to undo, making the wrong decision, not being in the right state of mind.
Well, what's really scary about this, Kimberly, is I know you just mentioned WPATH. These WPATH experts and doctors have introduced these standards for so-called gender affirming care. That's the kind of nebulous phrase they use to talk about transgender surgeries, hormones, and puberty blockers, which we now know the surgeries are irreversible. You cannot put back the healthy breasts of a young girl that you cut off. The hormones are irreversible. They'll have many effects that you can't ever change. And the puberty blockers can sterilize young kids. But our experts are saying, no, 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 gender affirming care is really important for kids who have gender dysphoria. So if your child has gender dysphoria, if you don't give them these puberty blockers and hormones, they might kill themselves. And so what they say to the parents who are thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know how to handle this, they tell the parents, would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son? And that's something that multiple parents in the book that I wrote were told about their children as they're experiencing all these emotions and they're thinking, how can I help my child? They're so sad. I want them to be happy. And they're lied to by these doctors who tell them
Terrible.
this horrible thing. And then they make these decisions that they and their child will deeply regret.
Yeah, no, it's really awful. It's so disturbing to me. Talk about some of the additional stories, that kind of stood out to you. I know you talked about some of that language that was used and employed by these doctors, but stories where there were people that really regretted and tried to detransition and the impact that it had.
Yes, I think that in particular, Chloe Cole, she's one of the girls in my book, and she's probably one of the most famous detransitioners, these young people who tried to transition and then realized it was impossible. And Chloe, for example, she was a very young girl when she transitioned. She was in her teens. She had never had a real relationship with a young boy. She liked to play with boys, but she didn't understand who she was interested in, what she was interested in. But what she did know was that she felt like she didn't fit in. And she was told by people online, oh, that means you're transgender. And so Chloe had never thought about the fact that maybe she might want to have kids one day or she might want to nurse her kids one day because she was a little girl, right? She's in her early teens. She's not thinking about breastfeeding her child someday. She's thinking about what the next thing going on in the next period of class is. And so sadly, Chloe, who experienced a lot of gender dysphoria at a young age. She believes she's on the spectrum. She was suffering in high school and she was sexually assaulted. Chloe ultimately decided, I think I'll be happier if I try and become a boy. And her therapists and her doctors affirmed this. And they pushed her through a gender transition, which ended in a double mastectomy. So now Chloe no longer has breasts. And she told me that now she thinks about getting married someday and having children. And she said, I never realized that this is something that I might want because I was a kid. And so, like Chloe and many others are saying, they weren't able to properly consent. They were children.
Terrible.
And even if they had been adults, they feel that these side effects and the lasting consequences of these procedures wouldn't have been properly explained to them either because of the manipulative way that the medical professionals present them.
So, how old was she when she made an uninformed decision to transition, and how old was she when she decided to transition back?
So Chloe was in her mid-teens. She was about 16 when she underwent this double mastectomy, and she has recently detransitioned and is now an advocate. So she goes all over the country speaking out about this, and the way she is treated is truly horrible. These trans activists are incredibly violent and aggressive, and they'll say horrible things to her, including wishing death upon her, threatening her, telling her that someone's going to kill her, all because she's merely saying, I was lied to. I am not happy with the decisions I made. I don't want anyone else to be hurt in this manner. And so she's a very brave young woman, as are the other girls in this book. There's multiple different storylines that I follow, and I try and give my readers a really clear picture of what the emotions were of these young people, like their last moments before they went in for surgery and, how they felt when they finally realized that, oh my gosh, I can't become a boy. It's not possible. All of these intimate moments, because I think those are so important to helping people understand what motivated young people to do this and how we can prevent that from happening again.
And what did Chloe's parents say?
I wasn't able to talk to Chloe's parents. She's trying to keep them out of the picture, which, you know what, I respect. It's a very sad thing that many of these people have gone through. But I will say I did speak with the mother of Abel Garcia, who is in my book, and he's a
Yes.
young man who tried to transition to become a woman. And he had top surgery. Thankfully, he did not undergo bottom surgery, which I will not get into here because of how graphic it is. But it is incredibly invasive and painful, and that is something that a lot of transgender people who identify as transgender undergo. I talked to Abel's mother, and she was just devastated that her child had gone through this. And I told her, and she agreed, it's not something that you would wish on any parent. And it's kind of a uniquely horrible, hard thing that parents in the modern day are having to deal with. Because, you know, maybe they make bad choices, and many of them do, in how to handle this, but it's not something you would wish on your worst enemy, right? To have to undergo this kind of thing. So I think empathy is needed for the parents, and empathy is needed for the people who tried to transition. But it is not needed for the doctors and therapists who knowingly did this to
They're
these
supposed to
young
be the
people.
professionals.
Exactly.
So you've also covered BLM riots, pro-abortion demonstrations after the Dobbs decision. What kind of parallels do you see in these like left-wing movements on race and gender and abortion?
Well, it's an interesting question you ask, Kimberly, because I've noticed a lot of parallels in as much as these types of ideology are embraced as a sort of religion by their adherents, right? So the transgender ideologists, their ideology is a religion to them. You can't question it. The phrase, would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son? That's kind of considered final,
Right.
The parents who are told that are just kind of expected to go along with it. And the same thing with when you say to someone, oh, this is who you really are. No one's supposed to be questioning that. And that goes along with other ideologies.
It's got to be living hell for a parent to have to go through this, to be honest with you.
I have so much empathy for the parents that go through this. It must be such a huge cross, and especially if they make the wrong decisions, thinking that they're trying to help their child.
And blame themselves for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. And it's so painful to go forward with. The last chapter in my book is about Abby Martinez, who is the mother of a young girl who ultimately threw herself in front of a train because she had been transitioned by the state of California. She was taken from her mother, taken custody of by the state, underwent hormonal gender transition, and ultimately was so unhappy that she threw herself in front of a train. And she was so mangled by this death that they had to pick up all of her body parts from all over the train tracks and have her mother try to identify her. That's the horror of what is going on here. And her story is an incredibly sad, but very realistic warning to everyone who is adhering to this ideology, that this is not the answer to the mental health troubles that these young people are experiencing, and they deserve real help.
Yeah, it's very sad. Why? Thank you for having the courage. It's not easy because they go after you too, to write this book and tell those stories that hopefully somehow will help other young children and their parents in making these like life-altering, decisions, because there's so much misinformation out there and public pressure. It's very difficult, but you've done a fantastic job. You're a great reporter. Daily Signal reporter, Mary Margaret Olahan. Congratulations on the book. D-Trans, tell people where they can get it.
Thank you so much. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it at Barnes & Nobles. It's sold by Skyhorse Publishing. It's an imprint of Regnery. And I'd be so grateful for your support.
Fantastic. And that's a great publishing house, Regnery. All right. And just ahead, we have Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville slamming Democrats' shameful excuses for illegal immigrant crime. So again, please download the Rumble app, subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, like, share, and subscribe so you never miss these major episodes. It is, in fact, all of you who make this show possible, along with our incredible sponsors, including one of our newest sponsors, the 1775 Coffee Company. We talk about it on the show all the time. Do not compromise on taste, on quality, or on your values. And 1775 coffee is brewed to perfection, crafted with precision, and built on patriotism. 1775's coffee's farm-to-cup process means there is quality, authenticity, and sustainability from start to finish. All the beans are ethically and exclusively single sourced. And that's not all, because the 1775 Coffee Company is joining forces with Rumble to support the causes that matter most. So your purchase helps support veteran causes, groups fighting to protect the First Amendment, the right to bear arms, and so much more. So go to 1775coffee.com/KG for 10% off your first order. Now, Joe Biden and the Democrats continue to make excuses for illegal immigrant crime that is taking the lives of our own American citizens. But Donald Trump and the America First movement is standing with me, the people, and standing with the family of Laken Riley. Just watch this split screen put together by the GOP showing the contrast between America First and America Last. Watch.
Illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented.
I say he was an illegal alien. He was an illegal immigrant. He was an illegal migrant. And he shouldn't have been in our country, and he never would have been under the Trump policy. We are profoundly honored to be joined today by the family and loved ones of Laken and some of her great friends. I met them. They're so incredible. The whole group is incredible. To Laken's parents, John and Allison, and her sister, Lauren, her roommate, Connolly, and to all of those who loved Laken, the hearts of hundreds of thousands and indeed millions and millions of Americans and people worldwide, they're shattered alongside of your beautiful hearts.
So sad and so real and heartfelt. And President Trump met with Laken Riley's family in Georgia over the weekend while Biden was busy apologizing for offending criminals. It's disgusting. It's an absolute disgrace. And our country deserves so much better. And our young people like Laken Riley do as well. Joining me now, Senator from Alabama, the coach, Tommy Tuberville. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us today.
Hey, Kimberly, how are you?
Very well, my friend. So we have a man who illegally enters the country, is now charged with murder of a young, beautiful girl. Joe Biden calls him an illegal in the state of the union. And now he's apologizing, saying, no, undocumented. What's your reaction?
Well, I was sitting watching that whole speech. I can just remember when he said that, I said, well, he's going to take some crap for this, because you cannot call in this country, if you're a Democrat, anybody come in this country illegal. You just can't do it. But you saw the speech last week, Kimberly. The biggest threat to our national security in this country is Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. It's not anything else other than that.
That's right.
They are a detriment to our society. They threaten our society. Every decision they make is not for the American taxpayers. It's for people other than the American taxpayers. And the burden on the citizens of this country is absolutely amazing. But it just breaks your heart what happened. We have more and more people every week being killed by illegal immigrants. And obviously, you're not seeing anybody talk about them. But there was a policeman killed last week, Policeman Gadd from Washington. I did a speech on him on the floor. I just saw in the news this morning there was somebody else that was killed because of a drunk driver. I mean, it's just on and on and on. You don't understand where these Democrats are coming from, but they're not Democrats. They're socialists that believe in one thing: control of our country, no matter what, and that's what's happening.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, they are doing, in fact, everything they can to normalize this destruction. Even in the Senate, Democrats blocked, right, an effort to not count illegal immigrants in the apportionment numbers for House districts. Why should people here illegally be counted?
Yeah, well, President Trump tried to stop it back, I think, in 2017, Kimberly, and they tied it up in courts. And that's what happens now. Our DOJ and our Justice Department is so corrupt. It's just amazing. But it's been happening over the years. But Bill Hagerty from Tennessee, Senator, and myself, we came up with this bill to say, listen, you can't count bodies in our country as citizens. And basically, that's what they're doing. The Democrats know that every person that comes across that border will be counted in a census, and it will be counted for redistricting, and will be counted mostly. It will change the red states. And if you look at some of these flights that came in a few weeks ago, the 325,000 that just flew over our border, paid for by the American citizens, a lot of those were flown into red states. And they're doing it for a reason. They want to change the redistricting of the country.
So obvious.
You said, Kimberly, the other night, we voted on this on the floor like at 9 at night, and not one Democrat voted for this. They all voted to be able to have these illegals voted and take place and water down the American citizens of this country.
It's so outrageous and sickening to me, but for Biden and these dangerous policies, Laken Riley and so many others would still be alive. So meanwhile, this weekend, we turned the clocks forward 1 hour. I know you've actually been working on legislation to make daylight savings time permanent. So talk to us about that. What sort of support is there for this on Capitol Hill, and why does it matter?
Well, I got it passed last year in the Senate. I've got it passed 100-0. And the bill went to the House, and Nancy Pelosi never would bring it to the floor. And I don't know why, because, when you have Democrats, it's a bipartisan bill. And what we want is don't change the clocks at all, but just leave it the way it is and don't change it every year. And the biggest thoughts about leaving daylight savings time is, number one, energy cost, because you have more daylight time.
Yes.
Yep, you have kids are able to stay outside and play longer after they come home from school.
It was always my favorite time of year.
Oh yeah, and they coming home now. It's already dark. It's just unbelievable. I love the time. Everybody says, well, it takes time to adjust. Just leave it the way it is. We get adjusted to this time, and it will be great. But again, we're going to try to get it on the floor. Marco Rubio, I think, is bringing it up this week. I think we'll get some votes. I'm just afraid that you're going to have some people now that's going to be against it. But again, Patty Murray, a Democrat from Washington, she is all for leaving it at daylight savings time. So it's only the
less
right
seasonal
thing to do.
Affective depression. I'm
Yeah.
serious. And so, and it is. It's a time saver, energy efficient, all of the above. And it's very good, I think, from a public safety perspective. As a former prosecutor, it's always good when you shed some daylight on stuff, less nefarious criminal activity, the majority of which happens at night and under cover of darkness, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and it concerns me, and we're getting ready to go into a dangerous time in our lifetime, is this election. The next 8 months, the crazies are going to come out of the woodwork like
really
they
true.
did a few years ago. And it is, we need more daylight hours. We need the policemen, the law enforcement officers to have an opportunity to see what's going on instead of have to have lights and those things. So it's so important. But again, I hope we can get it across the finish line. But
I hope so. Keep pushing. Don't give up. You're first and goal, Coach.
Yeah, we're going to keep fighting. We have a few people that say, I just don't want our kids to have to get on the bus in the dark early in the morning. Well, they're getting home in the dark.
Right.
And so you can look at it two ways. But again, the biggest thing I can remember back in the 70s, Kimberly, when I think I was still in high school, we had an energy crisis. Mm-hmm. And we moved to daylight savings time, I think for about a year and a half.
Yes, we did. Remember.
Yeah. And we didn't change the clocks because you burn less energy when you have more time to stay outside. So it worked, but they moved it back. And again, it's just one of those things I think would help everybody.
Yeah, and just because you've been doing something one way for God knows how many years doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it a different way. And we have in the past successfully, and it worked. But it's one of those common sense things that people just sort of go, okay, well, this is the way it's been done. No, let's change it. These are very good, valid reasons. Well, I support you wholeheartedly in it. Talk to us about some of your other legislative priorities as we move closer to this pivotal November election.
Well, the big thing, as we're doing right now, is we're finishing up the budget for this year, and we have what we call a mini bus. We passed 6 bills last week that covered half of the budget. Now, this week and next 2 weeks, we'll have 6 more that will pass. The defense budget is in there. Homeland Security is in there. There'll be a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, but it'll eventually pass. The one thing that's normal around here too, though, is today we'll get the budget for 2025. Now we're still working on 2024. Biden was supposed to have his budget with us a month ago. They're a month late. It's about the size of an 18-wheeler. That's how many pages are in it. It's just unbelievable. So we'll finally get the budget for that. We'll start working on it. But it's federal government. You know, we have 23 million federal employees now, Kimberly. We have way too many. We're spending $1 trillion every 100 days. We're printing or borrowing $80,000 a second. The federal government is out of control. The debt is the biggest threat to our country, not China, not Ukraine, Russia, not the Middle East war. It is our debt, and we better wake up. But the Democrats don't care. They think money grows on trees, and let's just spend because we want to keep power. We want to get reelected. We want to come back up here and have senator or congressman on front of our names instead of what's doing right for the American people. And that's the reason that Donald Trump has to win in 8 months. We have to put a stop to this madness.
Oh, 1,000%. Like, let's get it done and let's increase our majorities in the Senate and in Congress. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to your legislation passing about daylight savings. Always a pleasure, Coach, to have you, the one, the only, the great Senator Tommy Tuberville from Alabama. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimberly. Good to see you.
You as well. God bless. And my closing remarks just ahead, but I also want to bring you a special message from Patriot Lifestyle, where you can save more and spend less on a whole host of different lifestyle benefits, including savings on travel, identity theft, legal services, and even pet care. Take a look. Guilfoyle here, and I'm so excited to introduce the Patriot Lifestyle Benefits Program. With our benefits program, you get a range of lifestyle benefits at an affordable price, so you can save money and stay secure. For example, as a member, you will access exclusive discounts with NB Cash Back, so you can save more on your everyday expenses like groceries, restaurants, and even auto services. And with NB Travel, you can experience more but spend less by enjoying deep discounts on flights, hotels, entertainment, and so much more. These benefits are available to you and your immediate family to use anytime, anywhere. We also offer identity theft protection, so you can stay on top of any unauthorized, fraudulent, or illegal activity. And access free and discounted legal services, so you can protect your rights and receive top legal advice without breaking the bank. Plus, enjoy peace of mind on the highway with our roadside assistance program. And even take care of your furry friends with discounts on pet food, toys, medicine, grooming, and even trips to the vet. Our program is designed specifically for America First patriots like you, who understand the importance of letting your dollars reflect your values and supporting companies who support you. And the best part of all of this, our benefits are at below market prices, so you can enjoy all of them while living the Patriot lifestyle to the fullest. So don't miss out. Visit our website at patriotbenefits.net. That's patriotbenefits.net. Thank you again for choosing the Patriot Lifestyle Benefits Program, where real benefits and real savings are our top priority. Join us today and start saving now. And you can go to patriotbenefits.net to learn more, because these programs all come at an extraordinary value and will greatly improve your life. In closing, what we are seeing across our country is a dereliction of duty, a failure to protect people and property, a failure to protect public safety, and a failure to protect the dignity and sanctity of life. Like I always say, decades from now, our legacies won't be forged based on the corruption we uncovered, but by what we actually did to stop it. Don't just be outraged. Let's actually make a change and right all of these left-wing wrongs. It's why we are here right now on this show on Rumble, where we reject the false narrative and always seek the truth. So be sure to download the Rumble app, subscribe to my channel, please, turn on notifications, like and share and subscribe, and tell all of your friends so they know exactly where to find us. And please also be sure to follow me across all platforms: X, Truth Social, Facebook, and Instagram. And don't miss Don Jr.'s Big Show at 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on Rumble, with former Hawaii Congresswoman and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard. Hop on over to Locals for a quick Q&A with our favorite senior advisor, Lynn Patton. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I will talk to you all again very soon. God bless.